Welcome to Analysts Talk with Jason Elder. It's like coffee with an analyst, or it could be whiskey with an analyst reading a spreadsheet, linking crime events, identifying a series, and getting the latest scoop on association news and training. So please don't be that analyst and join us as we define the law enforcement analysis profession one episode at a time.
How we doing, analysts? Jason Elder here with another LEA podcast deep dive. And today it's real crime all the time, of course, with Nikki North. Nikki, how we doing?
Good. How you doing, Jason?
I am doing well. So we will get to the Real-Time Crime Center Association conference, but we have a topic of the day. What's the topic of the day?
Let's go into some live streaming some body cameras today.
So I'll just let you go. I have a couple of questions, but for those that may not know what we're talking about, give a brief definition.
So to live stream a body camera is essentially while a deputy or officer is on scene to be able to view exactly what they're viewing by going into their body camera. First and foremost, something to know with it is it does notify the deputy via a beep and their light changing on their body cameras when we're going into it, so they are aware. Mm-hmm. We take an extra precaution with that, and we also go over the radio and announce that we're live streaming a body camera as well. Mm-hmm. My agency does have a strict policy in place, so if you are going to implement this at your agency, I absolutely recommend doing so as well. It's pretty much going to be if they are on emergency traffic and not answering their radio, if they're on an incident by themselves and they're in a physical altercation, something major is going to trigger us going into their body cameras. We're not just going in by accident when they're in the bathroom or something like that. Mm-hmm. We don't even actually have that ability. They have to have their body camera on for us to go in. Mm-hmm. So for my agency, the real sell point, because of course you have the big brother stigma of the community, now you're bringing in the big brother stigma of your agency. So our kind of real kicker at my agency was we had a deputy out on the west side of our county. It's a pretty rural area. So her closest backup was a good 10, 15 minutes out. And we got reports of a guy firing a rifle and carrying it around. And that was pretty much all we had. Mm-hmm. So she gets on scene and sure enough, identifies the guy. And it is in fact a rifle that he's holding. So she immediately gets out her rifle and screams for the Real-Time Crime Center to go into her body camera. Mm-hmm. At that moment, it actually kind of cut out while she was screaming. I heard RT and that was it. And my gut told me that was RTCC go live. The way we could just tell her voice changed. That was not her normal tone. So that's another thing too, is knowing your officers and deputies' voices also plays a big factor. So I immediately went live in her body camera. She recognized that and was able to communicate through her body camera. So that way she could focus on keeping her hands on her rifle until her backup got there. So we were to the point we were actually able to call out a gunshot before she was even able to get over the radio to do so, that she was trying to get that info out.
Yeah. Now, up until that point, when she's communicating with you, it's through the radio, correct?
So so at that point, actually, we only had one-way communication on the radios. So she's just talking through her body camera, essentially, hoping we hear her because she's unable to get her hands to her radio. Since then, our agency has actually upgraded their body camera. So now it acts as a two-way walkie-talkie. Mm-hmm. So now going forward, that's something we can do instead, is we can talk directly to her through the body camera now too.
Okay. You probably said this and I didn't follow, but when she is talking and asking RT and then cut out, that was already on the body cam, or was that the radio?
So that part was initially over the radio, and that was the point where she was asking us to go into the body camera.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, that I understand that now.
Yep. So that was pretty much the point. She's in her trunk getting her rifle out, that she knows what she's about to do.
Okay, and so in this case, obviously, it's an officer safety issue, and she was communicating with you. Now, is it only the Real-Time Crime Center that has this ability to go into the body cams?
We originally started out with the Real-Time Crime Center and then commanders and above, and then we've since added that their line supervisors can as well.
Okay, all right.
So not just any deputy can go into another deputy's body camera at least, but their supervisors can go into their body cameras now, so that way if they're not answering the radio and they know they're pretty far ways out, they can still assist too. So that's especially critical on night shift, for example, when the Real-Time Crime Center isn't necessarily staffed 24/7.
Right. How are the officers taking this ability?
I think at first they were probably pretty hesitant, but I think that case being so early on after we got access was a real sell point. It was actually kind of funny after the fact was the next few days, deputies were asking us to go into the body cameras for things we wouldn't necessarily normally go into because they knew we could do that then. And we're like, all right, hang on, slow down a second. So, I mean, it's kind of leveled out now when we're back to following our policy, but it was definitely an eye-opener having such a case like that where it ended up playing out. The guy ended up surrendering successfully and no issues. So I think it was good having a real life scenario that would really sell what we were doing.
All right. Good. And then do you have any idea how many police departments even have the body cams, let alone this ability to go in live?
I know not every agency necessarily has body cams, but I feel like the majority of whom you talk to at this point with this day and age of all the technology do. The live streaming is kind of hit or miss. I know us personally, I'll give a shout out to Orlando PD is where we stole ours from. So we kind of copied our policy and idea from them that it was great. And it's just worked well for us ever since.
Yeah. All right. And then from the data perspective, the analyst perspective, do you have any insight on what things that you all were able to pick up from the real-time crime center?
So for us, we were essentially able to be her extra set of eyes. So going beyond that, I had initially been the one to go into her body camera. One thing we do within our crime center is on all of our phones, we have essentially a panic button, if you will. So being all civilian, if we press that button, it rings to every sworn detective, officer, whoever it may be on our floor, and they can come in. So at that point, once we kind of got the initial ease out of the way, my commander actually stepped in and was able to communicate perimeter points and stuff beyond that. So the analyst side, I was kind of more just an extra set of eyes that I couldn't really provide necessarily anything intelligence wise per se. But having that additional factor of bringing in my sworn commander, we were then able to provide further information beyond just what we were seing too.
Yeah, I guess you would have that well, I guess it's potentially you would get stuff in real time for that. I mean, if the body cam's going on, you obviously would have that ability to go back and look at it later. If it was something, if you were looking for a piece of evidence or a piece of information that the camera picked up, that obviously. If you
saw him on camera and then he disappeared, you might be able to go back and see where you last saw him, potentially get an image of his face to kind of see if you're able to identify who he is, if they weren't able to locate him. So there's definitely pieces you could go back after the fact too and review and use for the analytical side.
Yeah. But I mean, from your point of view though, I mean, that had to be kind of like a oh shit moment kind of thing, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, okay, we're actually flipping the switch now, right?
I literally had chills hearing her voice because I know what it normally sounds like. And I was like, this is going to go one of two ways. And thank God it went the way it did. But to this day, when I hear the recordings, I still get chills.
Yeah. Yeah. How long ago was that?
It was a little over a year ago now.
Okay. Anything else in terms of just going live or things to think about? Again, if somebody's listening to this and maybe their agency's about to get involved in this or they're going to put in to get this established, maybe is there any advice that you have?
I'd say my biggest piece of advice is make it so you don't have the ability to go in if they're not already streaming their camera. That's how you kind of avoid that accident side and help ease their minds of knowing when you're going in. So unfortunately, that may end up in a scenario where they do forget to turn their body camera on and you can't get in. But I think it's better to have that flip side where you don't accidentally go in and ruin the whole morale of having it in the first place. Yeah. So there are settings within Axon by your or whatever body camera company you use. For example, we use Axon. So whatever your agency is using, there's settings on the backside that can get turned off and never get messed with.
I see. Yeah. And then I'll obviously steal from Orlando.
Exactly. That helps too.
Yeah. That technology has really taken off. It's one of those things that I've watched a lot of video, but really when it comes to active shooters, and I say a lot, it's not like I spend all day watching it, but the camera and the angle, it is straight out of the video game angle.
Well, that's another thing too, on that active shooter note. We've done active shooter scenarios where we have access to our school cameras. But in the meantime, so one of us will be watching the school cameras, the other one will go into the body camera and get that same view to kind of have that perspective, exactly like you're saying, you're the player in the video game while we still have that grand overview too.
Yeah, it is wild to see that play out, and I'm like, oh, this is just like a first shooter video game. To watch them go in and everything else. So
but it's crazy the things you don't think of that, like I said, hers gives me chills that you never know until you're actually doing it how you're going to feel.
Yeah, especially since you didn't have all the information, right? As you mentioned, it cut out. It was just a little bit of information that you got that didn't sound right.
Yep, I was 100% trusting my gut. That's not her tone. I got RT. Something tells me that's what she's saying. If I'm wrong, I will gladly take the hit on this one because I would rather be safe than sorry. And sure enough, it was correct.
Yeah. Huh. All right. That's Interesting. All right. Well, let's switch gears then. We'll finish up talking about the Real-Time Crime Center Association conference. This is version 2. It's the second
Yes.
year, and you were in Arizona.
That is correct. I don't recommend, I mean, if you're from Florida, it's not so bad, but I definitely don't recommend going to Arizona in August if you don't have to. But it wasn't as humid, at least, so I had that going for me.
It's a dry heat.
It's a dry heat. But so out there, we had close to 1,000 attendees. We actually ended up having to turn away some attendees due to space, so otherwise we probably would have been well over 1,000. We had over 50 sponsors to make that event possible, and just a lot of good feedback that we've gotten about the different classes, having that level of sponsors out there. That's our biggest thing, I think, is like you're saying, with all the technology, having all of those sponsors in one place gives you the chance to really figure out like what's next.
Yeah. Now, do you feel now 1,000? That's even more than last year, right? What was last year's total?
We were almost double last year. So last year we were right around 500, give or take. This year, almost double.
Nice. Now, in terms of the attendees makeup,
we had
civilian, sworn, leadership.
Definitely a good mix. Personally, just from talking to people, it definitely seemed more like a lot of a supervisor level, but there were definitely some analysts there too. I think that's going to be kind of the next steps going forward, is having more. A lot of people were saying, like, as supervisors, a lot of the classes were actually directed towards analysts. So I think that's going to be kind of the next level, is really trying to get everyone involved and not just supervisors. But I know there definitely was a good mix of sworn, civilian, supervisors, analysts, command staff. We had over 300 different agencies and entities represented, about 700. So about a good fraction of 3/4 of the whole shebang was all law enforcement too.
Now, I noticed that in terms of comparing conferences, you didn't do a full week. And I was curious what went into that decision not to do a full week.
So we ended up kind of going with pre-conference classes Monday. We're kind of starting to realize we're probably getting to the point where we definitely need some more breakout sessions. So we did the pre-conference stuff Monday, just to have some different class opportunities. And then that way, if your agency didn't let you travel over the weekend, you could travel on that Monday to be there Tuesday for the conference. So then we did Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then that way, if after Thursday, if you needed to get back again, so you're not traveling on the weekend, was kind of why we did, okay, you can travel on Friday. Like I said, I think a big piece of that going forward is going to be, we're kind of past that point where we definitely need more breakout sessions than just a day and a half. Prior to that, though, one thing we did do on the back end was that Friday before, we did like a police leaders day. So we kind of brought in like different technology partners just to kind of talk about what's next. So then that way, our board and some of those bigger figures either could leave for the weekend or stay involved. So that way, Saturday, Sunday, we could kind of do our setup, our annual board meeting in person and all that stuff.
Oh, okay. So you were there the Friday before the conference.
Yep. I flew in that Thursday, so that way we could be there Friday. Yep.
Okay. All right. So any glimpse on what's next? What caught your eye?
I think a lot of the conversations going forward is definitely more AI, artificial intelligence driven. Seems to be a lot of what people are looking for in the future, is working more on that element of it.
I got you. I think too, 50 sponsors too. That seems really high.
And that was another thing too. We also had a wait list for that. We kind of ran out of space at that point too. So we had to cut some of them off as well.
Yeah. Oh man. I think we had talked previously about the association's take on sponsors in terms of you're not just calling them up when it's conference time. It's more of a partnership throughout the year.
Absolutely. So that's definitely one of the big things we pride ourselves on, of probably how we end up maintaining being able to do so. So on that element, like one of the things we did was Tuesday night, for example, after the conference that day, we had a thank you night for our sponsors and ended up having an event offsite that we were all able to go out with them and have the opportunity to just kind of converse offsite, saying our thank yous and that kind of thing. I made sure to go around to every single booth and take the time and talk with each of them. What could we do different? What do you want to see going forward? Thank you for being here. Just those conversations. And then, like you said, we keep those throughout the year too. It's not just because we're seeing them in person. Obviously, you finally get to put a face to the name when you're seeing them in person, but we maintain those throughout the year, different meetings, trying to collaborate on training events, stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're getting comfortable in the president's spot.
So actually, we announced at the conference that I will be stepping down from that after this year. However, the goal of that is actually we're looking to start doing some regions instead, because the association is growing so fast. So I'll be starting up for the Southeast region in the upcoming year. So I'll take lead on that one.
All right. Now, are you still all looking to have one big conference?
That's the goal. And then hopefully with the regions, they'll be able to have some extra events. So that way, if you're not necessarily able to send everyone to the conference, you do have some other opportunities for within your agency too.
I see.
Because we're also going to try to follow the East-West model where you switch where the conference is each year. So next year we actually announced too, for anyone that's interested, it will be in Cobb County, Georgia in September is what we're looking at.
Oh, okay. Now where is that? Atlanta?
Just outside Atlanta. Yep, just outside Atlanta.
It seems like when you say Georgia, I was like, oh, it's got to be Atlanta, right?
Yeah, we did the outskirts of Atlanta, so hopefully people feel more at ease where we went with.
Yeah. Well, hey, for those that do go next year and you get some free time on your hands, I highly suggest going to the Coca-Cola Museum in Atlanta. That is a spectacular museum, and you end up with a cup and the ability to try over 200 fountain drinks and Coca-Cola products from around the world.
Very cool.
Yes. So nice little plug for that randomly.
Yes, absolutely.
Fantastic. Sounds like another great event. And now you're just going to have to be 1,500 next year. I mean, that's the pattern, right?
So that's going to be the fun part going forward, is finding the space for that many people. That's for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, very good. For the listeners, we'll put links in the show notes for more information on the body cams and the Real-Time Crime Center Association. Nikki, I'll let you have the last word. What do you want to leave us with?
No, I'm just excited to be here, and unfortunately won't be attending IACA this year, but anyone that makes it out there, I can't wait to hear how it goes after that. It was too close to our conference, so this time I didn't get to go back to back, unfortunately.
All right. Very good. Thank you so much, and you be safe.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you for making it to the end of another episode of Analysts Talk with Jason Elder. You can show your support by sharing this and other episodes found on our website at www.leapodcasts.com. If you have a topic you would like us to cover or have a suggestion for our next guest, please send us an email at leapodcasts@gmail.com. Till next time, analysts, keep talking.